The last time we spoke was on the day American Bitcoin went public, made its debut on the NASDAQ. And here we are more than 2 months later. So how's it going so far?
Unbelievable. I mean, one of the fastest go publics. We went public in 5 months and 3 days. We're under 3 months in, as opposed to our first quarterly report, 56% gross margin, almost doubled revenue. Unbelievable. I mean, the company's doing so well. We mine Bitcoin at roughly 50% discount, to the market. And we do so, we mine a lot of it every single day. And we've been building and building and building. And we've been growing in terms of size every single day. And we're running the ladder in terms of, I think we're 23rd in the world right now in terms of, public treasuries. And we're having a lot of fun doing it.
Now, you mentioned your Q3 earnings report. It was the first earnings report as a publicly traded company.
Yeah.
And it was revealed that American Bitcoin swung to a profit from a loss the year before in Q3. Net profit was $3.5 million. So what do you attribute that shift to?
That was our first quarterly report, and obviously, fantastic profitability. And if there's ever an industry you can go in, you can mine a product for roughly 50 cents on the dollar, you want to do that. And we mine a lot of Bitcoin. We do so using American Energy. We do so out of West Texas. We're obviously listed on the NASDAQ under ABTC. Our only metric that we care about is growing, Bitcoin per share. That's what we focus on every single time we acquire Bitcoin. We want the amount of Bitcoin in reserves to increase per the amount of shares outstanding to shareholders. That's how we think we can increase incremental value. If you go in, you buy Bitcoin, right? You're buying one Bitcoin, and as the market goes up, you're going to rise that up, and as the market falls, you're going to fall with that. We believe that over time we can actually increase the amount of Bitcoin per share that individual investors have, and that's a metric that we focus on every single day. But again, our great competitive advantage is in depressed times we can go out and we can buy Bitcoin, we can put it on the balance sheet. We can also mine it, and we do, again, every single day. We mine it for a huge discount versus where Bitcoin trades on the open market.
So are you buying Bitcoin now? As you mentioned, American Bitcoin is in fact a Bitcoin accumulation company. So right now we're seeing Bitcoin fall below $90,000. Are you taking advantage of these lower prices?
Well, it's a great time to buy. I say this to everybody, man. I hear from people every single day. It's really expensive. Like, I want to wait till it dips down. And then when it dips down, they say, are you guys buying? And well, yeah, I just want to see if it dips. This is a great time to buy Bitcoin. There's no question. Bitcoin has been the greatest asset of our time. If you go back 2 years, Bitcoin was at 36,500. If you go back 3 years, Bitcoin was at 16,000. Today's it's at 91,000 right now. It was at 120,000. It is unbelievable returns. I mean, name an asset class anywhere that has returned better than cryptocurrency, that has returned better than Bitcoin over the last decade. I mean, you won't find one because none exist. And the growth is going to be staggering. You see what they did with obviously the spot ETFs. You see what they did with, JP Morgan's onboarding and Schwab's onboarding. And obviously you see what Fidelity is doing with their digital asset wallets. You see obviously the explosive growth of Coinbase and Robinhood. You see what JP Morgan's doing. You see what BlackRock's been doing. You see what companies like us are doing. Now all of a sudden you can go into the equity markets. You can get crypto exposure. You can get Bitcoin exposure vis-a-vis traditional equities. You didn't have any of these advantages 3 years ago. 3 years ago, you largely had to buy cryptocurrency based on DeFi with ledgers. Now it's becoming more accessible. And I'm telling you, I go all over the world and everybody wants Bitcoin. The biggest public companies want it. The wealthiest families on earth want it. You see what countries are doing. I mean, dozens and dozens of countries are trying to put it on their balance sheet. Everyone from the UAE to El Salvador and everything in between. I mean, obviously America is leading the way in terms of the amount of Bitcoin it has. Everybody wants Bitcoin. Bitcoin is digital gold, and it solves for a lot of problems that we have in the monetary system.
So what can people expect from American Bitcoin in Q4 and into next year?
Well, listen, I'm putting my heart and soul into the company. We are surrounded by some of the smartest people. We obviously have the infrastructure of Hut 8, which is one of the major data center companies, really energy providers. We have some of the cheapest energy anywhere in the US. We do all our mining out of West Texas. The most state-of-the-art facilities. Our biggest facility represents over 2% of all mining of Bitcoin worldwide. And so we're going to continue to grow our compute. We're going to continue to obviously grow our BTC holdings. We're going to do it with the lowest SG&A of any company. We are so focused on SG&A and making sure that the actual money that comes into a company goes to an asset that on average has appreciated 70% year over year for the last decade, as opposed to spending it on nonsense and fluff. And so I truly think we're going to be one of the greatest Bitcoin companies anywhere in the world. And I mean, we are 7 months in, and 2 months since going public, a little, 2.5 months since going public. No one could have accomplished what we did, and no one is climbing the ladder faster.
It's interesting because right now we're seeing so many Bitcoin miners try and shift their strategy and focus on AI, and yet here you are getting into this space at this time. I mean, just last week we saw Bitfarms, one of the largest Bitcoin miners, say that they're planning on winding down their mining operations entirely to focus on AI infrastructure. So what compelled you to get into Bitcoin mining at a time when so many Bitcoin miners are getting out of it amid shrinking profit margins, especially after the last halving event?
Well, a lot of them had to do it. A lot of them were in areas where they didn't have energy that was as advantageous. Some of them had sites that had direct connectivity to major T1 lines and other things where they were getting premiums on various sites where maybe that transition made sense. Again, our entire sister company, that's all we do. Hut 8, all we do is data centers, right? And energy for data centers and infrastructure for data centers. We can use that entire backbone to, again, mine Bitcoin, an asset that I believe in with every aspect of my heart and soul. I mean, Bitcoin has been the greatest assets for so many reasons, right? Unlike gold, it's a great store of value, but you can actually transport it. You can move it. You can liquidate it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can bring it anywhere on earth, right? You have capital markets that are, compare that to most assets. Even compare that to fixed assets that I'm in. And there's no one that likes fixed assets more than I do. You can't sell a hotel overnight. You can't sell a hotel with a click of a button. You can't trade a hotel. You can't move it from city to city. You can't move it from state to state. You can't move it around the world. It's not global. Bitcoin has no middlemen, has no institutions. If I want to go sell a building, if I want to go sell a property, guess what? You need brokers, and you need title reports, and you need insurance, and you need bankers, and you need all sorts of things, right? Big assets can take you 1.5 years, 2 years to actually trade hands. I think Bitcoin is the greatest hedge to hard assets. And then if you look around the world, we're really fortunate that we have the US dollar. The US dollar is by far the reserve currency of the world, as we all know, and it's going to stay there for a very long time. But you've got a lot of countries that have really bad currencies, where you have fraud and corruption. You've got massive inflation, right? Where literally you get your paycheck, it's no longer worth anything. Does it make more sense to put that into Bitcoin, or does it make sense to have a country like Zimbabwe that was running 10,000% inflation, where you get your paycheck and the money is instantly gone? There is a massive use case around the world for the protection of what Bitcoin offers, protection of what cryptocurrency offers, that I could argue is even greater than we have here in the United States. And so it's a reason that the entire world is embracing it. Look what Asia's doing. Look what Korea's doing. Look what the entire Middle East is doing. They love the asset class. They're embracing it. They're mining it. And the success speaks for itself, right? You talk about volatility. Obviously, we all know cryptocurrencies are volatile. Go back 2 years, 36,000. Go back 3 years, 16,000. From today's date, right? There is no asset class that has performed better, and I think it's going to have explosive growth in the years to come.
So clearly, you're very bullish on Bitcoin. There's no doubt about that. And you actually released your memoir last month, Under Siege, it's called. And in it, you talk about crypto a little bit. Okay. You say that your family got into crypto because you were debanked by traditional financial institutions. And you say that Bitcoin and crypto is an avenue to financial freedom.
It is.
Why was it important for you to mention crypto in your memoir, and take us through how you were even exposed to crypto to begin with?
Not only was I debanked, so many people in this country were debanked, and every day, millions of people around the world are debanked for no reason whatsoever. I happened to be debanked because my father wore a hat that was red that said, "Make America Great Again." And I started getting letters. I got a letter from Capital One, effectively closing 300 of our corporate accounts. I got a letter from JP Chase, closing 52 of our corporate accounts. I got letters from Bank of America. These are the largest financial institutions on earth. Closing our accounts for no reason. These are golf courses. These are condominium associations. These are hotels. These are restaurants that we have in the portfolio. They didn't give a damn. They wanted to take the rails out from under us. They wanted to debank us. They wanted to deplatform us, and they wanted to hurt us. And I realized very quickly that the very same people who were coming after us, those banks were also going after people in cryptocurrency who just wanted to improve the system. Why is it that you can't send a wire transfer after 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon? Right? Now that makes complete sense to me as a business guy, right? JP Morgan wants to hold your money. for 72 hours over the course of a weekend. They want to take the interest associated with tens and tens of billions of dollars that are sitting in purgatory. Is that fair to the average consumer? And by the way, is that financial freedom? You literally can't move your money for a 48 or 72 hour period of time. It's insane. It's asinine, right? And so, in cryptocurrency, you can move unlimited amounts of money for virtually zero fees, no middleman, none of these crazy exorbitant banking fees at 11 o'clock on a Saturday, from your cell phone while having a glass of, wine with your husband or your wife. Isn't that financial freedom? Isn't that modern finance? Same thing. I mean, try finance a home. You go through a process for 120 days and know your customer with the bank that you banked at for, 30 years. Does that seem current? Does that seem technologically advanced? It's not. The banks have had a monopoly on the financial system for years, and they did everything they could to not embrace cryptocurrency until they realized that cryptocurrency had become so big that if they didn't embrace it, they died. They saw the growth of Coinbase. They saw the growth of Robinhood. They saw the growth of DeFi. They saw the trillions going into Bitcoin and in these major capital markets. And now all of a sudden, all the banks are embracing it. But I got into cryptocurrency because I didn't have a damn choice. They debanked me for doing absolutely nothing wrong. These are golf courses. These are golf courses in upstate New York. These are restaurants. These are assets that have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of employees and members. Literally, you're getting a letter, your accounts are hereby canceled and you can't pay your employees. They can't put bread on their table because they didn't like your political affiliation. It wasn't even, it was my father's political affiliation. He was the one. I'm not a politician. I'm not in politics. And yet we were canceled like we were dogs. And honestly, it was a blessing in disguise because it made me find cryptocurrency, and I'm so happy I did.
I like that positive outlook. Well, American Bitcoin is your latest venture into crypto, your family's latest venture into crypto, another co-founder, your brother, Donald Trump Jr. You're also involved with World Liberty Financial, and this is backed by your father, the president. But there has been a lot of criticism surrounding your father's involvement in crypto, especially from Democratic lawmakers in Washington, D.C. Your brother told CNBC last month that these concerns about conflicts of interest are complete nonsense. When I spoke with you back in September, you said there is complete separation between church and state. But, the criticism keeps coming. Most recently, more criticism came after your father granted a pardon to Binance founder Changpeng Zhao. Critics pointed to a $2 billion deal Binance was involved in that utilized a Trump family-tied stablecoin. So what's your reaction to that and all the concerns about potential conflicts of interest your father has been getting for his ties to crypto?
There are no conflicts of interest. My father has absolutely nothing to do with cryptocurrency. We started World Liberty Financial. We're incredibly proud of it. Fastest growing stablecoin on earth. And stablecoins, by the way, are going to bring trillions of dollars back into the U.S., right? I really think stablecoins save the U.S. dollar, bringing trillions of dollars back to our shores. My father has zero involvement with our company. He has zero involvement with cryptocurrency. You mentioned CZ. If I've met CZ twice in my life, I wouldn't have his phone number. I'd have no way to get in contact. CZ happens to own the largest exchange in the world. If you're in cryptocurrency, congratulations. You'll probably transact in some way, shape, and form through Binance. Now, in my opinion, CZ got a raw deal. I don't know him. He's not a friend of mine. I think I shook his hand maybe once at a conference. I know nothing about CZ, right? I do think he got a raw deal, no different than everybody else in cryptocurrency, because the Biden administration was going after absolutely everybody in the industry. And that's why America lost the crypto industry. That's why China was literally, China, Korea, they were eating our lunch. That's why the Middle East was eating our lunch until my father came along and embraced it. But we started World Liberty Financial when they had my father and I in a courthouse for doing absolutely nothing wrong. And since then, we've won every single one of those cases. As they were trying to put my father in jail for 91 fake felony counts, again, every single one of which has been overturned by the court system, right? As I was sitting in those wooden pews, we were working on World Liberty. We were working on building a stablecoin, which is wholly American. This is when all the major networks gave him a 0% chance. They were putting his mugshot on t-shirts. My father's always believed in cryptocurrency because he just believes in technology. He believes in technological advancement. Why is it that every other thing around us can advance technologically, whether it be cell phones, whether it be aircraft, whether it be our military might, whether it be artificial intelligence, whether it be power? generation. But what, crypto can't? He can't believe in the advent of cryptocurrency. Of course, it made a lot of sense because our traditional banking system is broken. And last but not least, we didn't have a damn choice. We had to get into cryptocurrency. We didn't have any other avenues. We didn't have any banks. The largest financial institutions shut us out. And you know what's really interesting? Now they're all coming back and they're kissing our you-know-whats. Every single day, the very same people who canceled us, oh yes, we'd love to have a relationship with you. We'd love to have a relationship with you. Our financial system is so dishonest. It is so incredibly dishonest. And I would love nothing more than to see blockchain replace so many of these institutions that have been so punitive to so many people. Let me give you one other secret. The people in our financial system who have always had the advantage are guys like us, right? Powerful companies with famous last names, with a lot of zeros on their balance sheet. They have been the worst for the average retail consumer who doesn't stand a chance against a traditional financial system. They have no leverage, they have no negotiation power, and they get feed to death. Crypto solves all of that. Blockchain solves all of that. There is nothing that can't be done on blockchain that JP Morgan Chase can do, that Bank of America, that can't be done better, faster, cheaper, and more transparently. And I think that's a wonderful thing for humanity. I think that's a wonderful thing for the people of our country. And I think that's a wonderful thing in putting real checks and balances on the very people who weaponize the financial system against people that they didn't like for political reasons.
So just this week, two Democratic senators, specifically Senators Elizabeth Warren and Jack Reed, sent a letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, pushing for a probe into World Liberty Financial for allegedly, reportedly selling tokens to businesses that engage with North Korea and Russia. I have the letter right here. In it, they write that by selling these tokens, World Liberty Financial has taken money from people with open and obvious connections to enemies of the United States and raised national security risks by giving them a, quote, seat at the table to set WLF's forward-looking governance policies.
It's absolutely laughable. We know your customer on every single person that buys a token from us. It's absolutely laughable. Listen, Elizabeth Warren's been coming after my father for years. You know that. I mean, Elizabeth Warren was, the very same person who was saying that I was colluding with Russia during the Russia hoax. She wanted to hang us for treason. Give me a break, right? The same person who lied that she was a Native American when she's got about 0.0001% Native American. I put zero stock into what Elizabeth Warren says. We run a great company. I have absolutely nothing. I have nothing to do with the administration. I stay out of policy. Frankly, I've had enough politics after a 10-year period of time. I run a great company. I run a great hospitality company. I'm incredibly proud of the crypto projects we have. I believe this is the future of modern day finance. I believe Bitcoin is going to be the digital gold. I believe that stablecoin is how we're going to transact all financial transactions. And I believe it's going to bring trillions of dollars back into the United States from countries all around the world. And so I couldn't be more proud of our ventures. And I couldn't be more proud that these ventures started before my father was in office, when they were trying to imprison him, when everybody gave us a 0% chance of winning. But listen, this is politics 101. This isn't anything that we haven't dealt with for years. It is what it is. It's, to me at this point, it's kind of water off a duck's back.
Now, you mentioned that you also are involved in hospitality, obviously. You're also the executive vice president of the Trump Organization, overseeing the company's vast real estate portfolio around the world. And just this week, the Trump Organization announced the world's first ever tokenized hotel development project. What was the reasoning behind that move? During the announcement, your team said that this would give investors access to what you describe as a high-growth real estate investment from the start, rather than tokenizing the completed asset. So talk to me about the main driver behind this project.
I think we're going to see a world in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, when you look back, where pretty much every asset class is tokenized in some way, shape, or form. If Taylor Swift comes out with a new album, why is she going out to Paramount Records or one of these big, record label houses? Why doesn't she just go out to those Swiftie fans who would invest in her, who would invest in her project, who would want to be partners in that project? And why can't that be tokenized? Why can't some girl who absolutely loves Taylor Swift invest $200 of her money or $500 of her money and buy part of a tokenized album that can live forever, that can throw off possible cash flow, etc.? you're going to have the arts that are tokenized. You're going to have music that's tokenized. You're going to have Hollywood that's tokenized. You're going to have real estate that's tokenized. So I really announced this on 2 projects. One, Trump International Hotel and Tower, Dubai, which we're building right in the middle of the city. It's going to be one of the most spectacular buildings anywhere in the world. A project that we're doing in the Maldives, also in hospitality. You know, that's what I do every. But I mean, why not give somebody the ability to have some level of ownership? You know, why is it that I should only be going out to Deutsche Bank, or why is it that I should only be going out to, you know, JP Morgan Chase in order to be, you know, or Wells Fargo, or you name the lender out there to actually get end loan financing? If people believe in us, if people believe in our brand, if people believe in any project, why can't they invest? Why not give people the freedom of being able to, you know, invest or be a part of in some way, shape, or form, you know, projects that are aspirational to them, projects that they otherwise believe in? Why is that only reserved for the select few? And that's what tokenization is going to do. Tokenization is going to massively broaden the market. It's going to massively broaden the opportunities to finance. It's going to allow investors, again, who just would not have the access to certain investments, to be able to, you know, join something they like, join something that they believe in, join a family they believe in, join a brand that they believe in, invest in art in a different way. Why couldn't you take the Mona Lisa, using that as a silly example, and get, you know, 1 million people together and buy a piece of art, and they each own some denomination of what that piece of art is? Now, they couldn't have afforded the Mona Lisa or whatever the respective art piece was without being able to do that. They wouldn't have had the financial capacity, but now they can. Now they can own a piece of whatever they believe is beautiful, whatever they believe has value. That's what tokenization is. We're going to do it for art. We're going to do it for Hollywood. We're going to do it for commodities. We're going to do it for the oil and gas industry. We're going to do it, and we're just going to trade on stable coins. A lot of that can be done in DeFi using smart contracts, where you don't need middlemen, you don't need fees, you don't need expenses of the big banks, you don't need foreign exchange. It's going to be a very powerful industry, and it's coming very quickly.
So is it fair to say that the Trump organization could potentially get more involved in tokenization and release more projects like this?
Well, listen, obviously I'm a hard asset guy. I love real estate, and obviously I love the hard asset. I love the cryptocurrency space, and I think there's a natural bridge between the two, and it makes a lot of sense on a lot of fronts. I would say the biggest downside to real estate, to hard assets, is the amount of middlemen that put their fingers into a transaction. Think about you know, real estate brokers. They go, what, 5-6% commissions? You know, they walk through your house, you know, for 15 minutes once, and they're taking, you know, 5-6% of the value of your home. You know, like, give me a break, right? Like, can that kind of look at title? Title can't be conveyed in a better, more efficient way using blockchain technology than through title companies, which are absolutely massacring people in fees and expenses and closing costs, right? All of that can be done using DeFi. All of that can be done using blockchain technologies. And I think kind of, you know, this mission to tokenize is very, very strong. And I think that's where society is going to head.
Turning back to Bitcoin's price, you have made some bold predictions for Bitcoin, saying that eventually it could potentially hit a $1 million valuation. So do you still feel that way now, especially amid the sell-off? Obviously, Bitcoin is a very volatile asset. Anything can happen. We've seen many new highs this year, the new record above $126,000. So what's your outlook for Bitcoin for the rest of this year? And then what's your outlook for Bitcoin in 2026?
Well, I mean, honestly, I laugh at the question, and I do so with total respect. I remember watching CNBC when, you know, Bitcoin was at like 3,000, and they, you know, and it dropped, you know, 30% or 50%, and they said that, you know, Bitcoin was dead. And then sure enough, you know, a couple months later, it's at, you know, 10,000, and then, you know, drops another 20%, and now it's at 7,000. They say it's dead. And every single time Bitcoin drops, they think it's dead. It's really amazing. It's like, you know, for kind of sophisticated network, to think that the markets draw a perfectly linear line is like laughable, right? Again, please go back 2 years. You know, Bitcoin was at 36,500 to be exact, from roughly today's date. Go back 3 years, Bitcoin was at, you know, 16,000 and change. Name an asset that's gone from 16,000 and change 3 years ago to 91,000 this morning. Forget about the fact that it was at 125, right? I mean, this is the greatest return that you could ever possibly imagine, but everybody likes to have very short-term memory. And I truly believe that a lot of reporters in the space, you know, believe in kind of the ethos of like, what have you done for me lately, right? Bitcoin has been the single greatest, at today's value, there's no asset that's had greater appreciation than Bitcoin. I fully believe that Bitcoin will hit $1 million. It's going to take some years to get there. I think
Roughly how many years?
listen, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. I think we're going to massively outperform the markets. I believe in that with every aspect of my heart and soul. I see the adoption worldwide. I think maybe that's one of the great, kind of benefits of me being in commercial real estate, hotels, building properties all over the earth. Everywhere I go, people are coming up to me. I mean, I was in Hong Kong. There's 25,000 people at a Bitcoin conference that were sitting there, and they believe in Bitcoin with every aspect of their heart and soul. It was standing room only. There's no one else that could come into this convention center. It was so big, right? And the Asian markets are opening up to it. Obviously, the Middle Eastern markets are opening up to it. South American markets are opening up to it. Look at El Salvador, they're putting on their balance sheet, and this is a small country. Look at the UAE, they're putting on their balance sheet, and this is obviously a very large, country economically. Look at every Fortune 500 company. I mean, there isn't a week that goes by where another Fortune 500 isn't adding, a Bitcoin as some level of currency on its balance sheets. People believe in it, and look at the ETFs. Look at the Bitcoin ETFs. There's never been more successful ETFs in the history of the capital markets than the Bitcoin ETFs. The amount of inflows. Now, all of a sudden, a year ago, I had friends who were financial advisors who were saying put nothing into any kind of crypto assets. Obviously, Bitcoin leads the way, and now they're recommending 2 to 5% of portfolios. So now all of a sudden you see 401ks come in, and you realize why Bitcoin is actually less volatile than it was. I mean, volatility in Bitcoin has come down a lot. I think a lot of the money in Bitcoin now is a lot stickier, than it was in the past. A lot of times it was kind of tradable funds, and now it's much more long-term investment funds, and that's why you've seen volatility come down. But no one can expect 70% returns on average year over year with zero volatility. You create that product, I'm in. I'm in. Until you can embrace the volatility. Volatility for American Bitcoin is massively our friend. There's so many things you can do with volatility. But or if you just don't believe in it, go buy treasuries. Go get 4%. Enjoy yourself. Have a great time. And I'll see you in 10 years, and we'll see who ultimately won the race. And those people are going to lose. The people who buy cryptocurrency, I truly believe with all of my heart and soul, are going to be the ones that win.
And clearly you are in Bitcoin. Eric Trump, thank you very much for joining us here at Clear Street's Disruptive Tech Conference in Palm Beach, Florida.
Great to be here. Thanks.